The Wicker Tree, which is a new film that I made last year and which follows by more than 30 years its predecessor, The Wicker Man, is a film of the same genre. It doesn't have the same story, although it has similar themes, but it's a film which is comic, erotic, and full of music, lovely songs, all of which was true of The Wicker Man, I think. And Christopher Lee said of it that it's horrific enough to melt the bowels of a bronze statue. So it's horrific too, but at the end. I don't go in for a lot of blood in my films. So from that point of view, it's not a horror film. In fact, I don't think it's a horror film in any sense. It's a genre of its own. It's a Wicker Man sort of film. And it's the second film in a trilogy, the third of which I plan to start shooting here in Montreal next year, called The Wrath of the Gods, which is very loosely based on the last episode of The Ring Cycle by Wagner. The Wicker Tree uses three important strands of the mythology of Scotland. On the borders between Scotland and England, who, as most people know, were traditional enemies until about 300 years ago, there were a series of battles between the armies of the two countries. And one story is that after the battle where the King of Scotland was killed, his standard bearer, the man who carried his personal flag, rode back through the English lines all the way to Stirling, which is in the middle of Scotland, to tell the Queen, who was, of course, by now a widow, and her daughter was Mary, Queen of Scots, who was famous in literature and legend. She was not yet born. In other words, she was posthumously born after her father was killed in the battle. And that is commemorated, some people say, by a yearly custom in Scotland on the little towns that are along the border with England, that they elect a young man, the best looking, the best rider, the most intelligent young man they have, and he rides out on what is a kind of hunt. There are no dogs. There's just all the other people ride on their horses and their ponies after him. And they ride all over the hillsides until they catch him. And then they all have a picnic. Well, that's one origin of the story. This actually happens in 7 different towns along the border every year. And the other origin, I think, and most people think, is much, much, much earlier. It's like the Dionysian Greek thing where the hero for the day, the king for a day, which of course was also in The Wicker Man because the policeman was king for a day, and that's why he was worthy of being sacrificed. And so that theme is repeated in this film. But it is based on a real thing that really happens. And at first you think it's an ordinary hunt like a fox hunt or a deer hunt, but of course there are no dogs, so it really isn't at all. It's a manhunt. And traditionally the man was, he knew what was going to happen, but he had to add to his myth by being the best rider and nearly escaping and making them really have to hunt him. That was part of his role before he died. Anyway, that's one of the themes. Another theme is something called Beltane, which was a Celtic feast in springtime, and which involved people celebrating with parties, making love, sort of bacchanalia. And every year, this is hard to believe actually, but every year in Edinburgh, the capital, up on a hill behind the principal street, Princes Street, a group of young people, usually about 50 or 60, almost naked, recreate the Beltane. Last time I saw it, which was 2 years ago, there were 17,000 people watching. So it's a big deal. And the people who play the roles, who are all young, of course, in their 20s perhaps, yes, they're in their 20s, they're not teenagers, are maybe lawyers, maybe accountants, professional people, as well as dancers and actors, But it's much wider than just dancers and actors. It's a whole group of young people who get together to do this. And each year they invent a new ceremony in honor of the Beltane Festival, which is a festival of fire, water, air. The remarkable thing is that it's going on in a city not unlike Montreal. I mean, it could be going on your mountain here quite easily if there were a group who wanted to do it. So that I've included part of that in my film. And the third strand is very modern and is nuclear energy. In the UK, not like Japan, thank goodness, but like Japan in the sense that we have a lot of nuclear plants. There have been a number of accidents, none of them, thank God, anything like what has happened in Japan. But there was quite a serious one near Liverpool where the water table was affected because cooling water, as you know, is very much a factor in nuclear plants. And the water has to go somewhere. And if it gets into the general water table, it carries contagion with it. And in this case, a lot of people who drank the water, which is the whole local communities, the men were infertile. And there were many lawsuits about this. Of course, it's very difficult to prove. But I've used that as another theme. So those are the things which are different from the Wicker Man. The thing that is like the Wicker Man is that the Wicker Man had the rather Puritan policeman, and the Wicker Tree has two young American evangelists from Dallas, Texas.